What is up, everybody, and welcome to FLW videos. In today's episode, I thought it would be fun to go ahead and take a look at some future Pokemon and see what they would look like if they were put into Pokemon Go, specifically talking about Generation 6. This is going to be amazing. We're kind of getting towards the tail end of Generation 5. We got the announcement for Mega Pokemon being introduced into Pokemon Go. There are quite a few of them, of course, delaying this a little bit, but I think covering Gen 6 could be a lot of fun, could be a lot of value to see. Are there going to be any Pokemon from that generation that could potentially take over a #1 spot to a Pokemon you have now? And of course, looking to the future for where you want to put your investment into it. Anyways, if you do enjoy this episode, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. So this list is going to be in order of CP, and if a Pokemon initially would be above 4,000 CP, they do have the 9% nerf applied to them. That's just what Pokemon Go does, and that's what these stats will reflect. We'll be covering non-legendaries, legendaries, and then of course mythical Pokemon, as well as a peculiar situation that happens in at the #2 spot with a non-legendary Pokemon. So of course, make sure you stick around for that. But let's go ahead and jump into the #10 spot. We've got Tyrantrum. So Tyrantrum, the first thing I can say is its model looks fantastic. I am in absolute love with this. And then as far as its shiny is concerned, it ends up being a blue version of it. Man, that looks amazing. Just wanted to give a shout out to Tyrantrum for that. But anyways, as far as the Pokemon is concerned, we've got a Rock Dragon Pokemon. So a little bit different in that way. It's going to have a lot of trouble competing though against the rock types and against the dragon types when you take a look at the stats. Its best stat is its attack stat at 227, but there's just a lot of Pokemon that beat that from those two different typings. So unfortunately, Tyrantrum, I don't know if it's going to be useful in Pokemon Go, but I think people will still enjoy it because after all, it is a super cool looking Pokemon. People will definitely have a lot of fun with it, at least in my opinion. Anyways, we go ahead and move on to the next Pokemon. We've got Avalugg. So Avalugg looks fantastic. It is a pure ice type Pokemon. It's kind of like a tortoise slash an avalanche slash an iceberg, that type of thing. So kind of keeping the theme tight on that. So an overall ranking of 77th if it were introduced into Pokemon Go with Gen 1 through Gen 5 and the Megas being included. We got a max AP of 3,198, and we're only at the 9th position. So just think about what's going to end up coming up ahead. As far as its best stat is concerned, we have an amazing defense stat at 240. That is just insane to be able to see that. It has a decent stamina stat as well, so it's definitely going to be a tank for sure. And its attack stat's a little bit on the lower end, but as we know in Pokemon Go, that does not mean the Pokemon is completely useless. It may be from the raid side, but from PvP, I'd be excited to see how this Pokemon does. Of course, it is going to be moveset dependent. Cross your fingers, Niantic will give it a decent move, and we will see Avalugg end up showing up on the PvP side. Anyways, if we go ahead and move on, we've got Florges. So Florges looks fantastic, by the way. As far as its typing is concerned, it is a pure fairy type Pokemon. When I looked at it, I thought it was like a fairy slash a grass type, but no, it is a pure fairy type Pokemon. By the way, this is the shiny version of it. Just wanted to point that out. I actually had a hard time finding a model for it with just the regular colors of it, but just want to go ahead and point that out so it isn't confusing. Anyways, as far as the CP is concerned, we got 3,234, ranked at 85th overall in Pokemon Go. It has an amazing defense stats. Once again, very interesting. It has an okay attack and an okay stamina, but what you're going to see throughout this list, and it's kind of interesting, is a lot of fairy type Pokemon. Fairy type Pokemon to some extent get a major buff in Gen 6 just by having a lot of fairy type Pokemon that have a decent set of stats. So I'm excited about that. I think that's going to be a little bit interesting to see how that will affect the Pokemon Go meta. Anyways, we go ahead and move on to the next Pokemon. We've got Goodra. So Goodra is a pure dragon type Pokemon, and it is ranked at 48th in Pokemon Go as far as the stats are concerned. And let me tell you this, it is very well rounded. So its best stat once again is that defense stat. The attack stat's a little bit on the lower end for a dragon type Pokemon, but once again, PvP, it could end up being super good. And then, of course, the stamina is pretty solid. So it is a very, very well-rounded Pokemon overall. So who knows? Goodra could end up getting a place in Pokemon Go, especially towards the PvP side. So I would love to see how this Pokemon ends up performing with a max AP of 3,505. It's going to get crazy moving up from here. We've got Volcanion. So Volcanion, firstly, the most interesting thing that I thought was the typing. So it is a fire and water type Pokemon. So very interesting, a little bit of a yin and a yang going on there. We have an overall ranking of 50th if it were being put into Pokemon Go, a max CP of 3,628, and as far as its stats are concerned, it has an attack stat of 252. That's very similar to Moltres. That's very close to a Pokemon like Heatran. I don't think it will necessarily be able to compete with a Pokemon like Reshiram, but in at that number 2 through 4 position, Volcanion could end up being a solid option. And then, of course, just keep in mind it also has the water typing, so it could end up being good from that perspective as well. Moveset dependent, but regardless of that, I think people are going to be very excited to see Volcanion being added into Pokemon Go. Up next, we've got Zygarde Complete, also known as the 100%. So Zygarde has multiple forms in the game. Being introduced into Pokemon Go, who knows what's going to happen with this Pokemon, but as far as its typing is concerned, this may seem familiar to you. We've got a Dragon Ground type Pokemon, so think of a Pokemon like Garchomp or something like Flygon, for example. They have the exact same typing, an overall ranking of 66, but here's where it's impressive. The fact that Zygarde Complete is able to get an overall ranking of 66 in Pokemon Go with an attack stat of 184 means that this Pokemon is stacked elsewhere, so an amazing defense, an amazing stamina. The attack stat's the only thing holding it back, but could you just imagine how much of a monster this Pokemon could be from the PvP side? As far as its stats are concerned, it's looking like it could end up being one of those Pokemon that does well on the PvP side, so cross your fingers once again for a moveset. We want all of these Pokemon to be useful in some way. I think Zygarde's best chance is from the PvP side. So let's go to move on to the next one. We've got Yveltal. So Yveltal may look familiar because it's one of the Pokemon on the cover for Generation 6. We've got it with a dark as well as a flying type, so think something like a Honchkrow, for example. An overall ranking of 30th in Pokemon Go. So that's like the highest one that we have seen so far on this list. It has an attack stat of 250. That's solid. It has a stamina stat of 246. That is solid. Really, the only thing holding it back technically is that defense stat, but at the same time, though, this Pokemon is looking amazing. Cannot wait to see Yveltal being added into Pokemon Go. So let's go ahead and look at the flip side of it. We've got Xerneas. So once again, like I said before, those fairy type Pokemon are absolutely showing up on this top 10 list. We've got another fairy type Pokemon. So Xerneas actually has the exact same set of stats as Yveltal. So it's going to differ from the typing and then of course the movesets that it gets. But I would love to know which one you think is your favorite. Do you like Yveltal or do you like Xerneas? Let me know in the comment section below based on what you've seen, based on the typing, and then of course based on the model. It's looking good. I cannot wait to see this Pokemon added in. Now, when we move on to the second position, this is a very interesting situation and it occasionally happens in Pokemon Go. We've got ASH-GRENINJA. So if you don't know about ASH-GRENINJA, it is a Greninja that has a variant that is an Ash form. So in Pokemon Go terms, it's very similar to a Mega Evolution where it ends up having different stats than just the regular Greninja form. It's the ASH-GRENINJA. So it's a very popular Pokemon from just the regular franchise. I had somebody reach out to me on Twitter asking if I can make this form and I made it. But in doing so, I realized that ASH-GRENINJA gets like the gift wrap in Pokemon Go because its max CP is 3,984 and it did not get nerfed because it was not above 4,000 CP and it got right up to it, which means those Pokemon that we talked about earlier like Xerneas and Yveltal ended up dropping down because they were above 4,000 CP, got dropped down, but ASH-GRENINJA completely avoided it. That happens sometimes in Pokemon Go, which means it's completely unnerfed and other Pokemon are nerfed down below it. So that's just such a cool situation with this Pokemon. It is a dual type of water as well as the dark typing, so should be interesting, especially for the fact that it has a super high attack stat of 339. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are a fan of ASH-GRENINJA, put it in the comments section below. I'm so excited seeing this Pokemon. Anyways, if we go ahead and head on to the final Pokemon, into the number 1 position, we've got HOOPA Unbound. So HOOPA has 2 forms, and the HOOPA Unbound has the best set of stats of the 2, so we're of course covering that one. We see that it has an overall ranking of 74th in Pokemon Go, so we've technically seen some higher than that, but HOOPA has the highest CP out of all of these Pokemon. An attack stat of 311 definitely helps, and that's after it ended up getting nerfed. So, I mean, it would have just been a crazy number before that, and it has a decent defense stat as well, and really the only red flag is the stamina, but at least it has a decent defense stat to kind of like counterbalance a little bit. It's going to be a little bit of a glass cannon, but when you're talking about a Psychic/Dark type Pokemon, Honestly, I cannot wait to see this Pokemon added into the game just to see how it has an effect. Of course, dependent on the moveset, I think it has a lot of potential, and I would love to know what you think about it in the comment section below. But that just about wraps up the top 10 list. I want to know what your favorite Gen 6 Pokemon is in Pokemon Go. Did we end up covering it on this list, or is it a completely different Pokemon? If it is, let me know in the comment section below, and I will see you next time. If you want to develop a deeper connection, I would highly recommend you to check out Patreon. We've got a lot of really cool things going on over there. Check out all of these supporters that we have. We are almost up to 100. We are also posting some special content, some behind the scenes work. And if that is the type of thing that interests you, I would highly recommend you to check it out.